During this video segment, I want to talk about all the tools that are available to teachers as curriculum editors. Most teachers within the school will be given curriculum editor access. So I'm going to work through Curriculum Trak left to right here. But before I go to these links, let's talk about this initial page. We call this the dashboard. And teachers should see their courses listed on the left side. And if they click on any of these courses, what it does is it brings up information about that course. It'll first of all show all your units that are set up, your time frames and units. These are what we call time frames, and these are our units. And so it gives you that scope and sequence. It'll show you your benchmarks that are attached to this course. And it'll also give you an idea of how you're doing with the units. So right now, 22% of my units in this course have essential questions. 100% of them have learning targets, and 33% have assessments. So I have a little bit of work to do in the essential questions and assessments for this particular unit. If I click on the next course, I can see again the time frames and units. And looks like I'm doing a little bit better here, but still have some work to do in the essential questions area. And if I go to abstract algebra, notice I haven't done anything yet. And so for our video today, we're going to be working in the abstract algebra area. Notice the icon behind abstract algebra. This will allow me to go directly to the curriculum map for abstract algebra. I could also go to maps and find it here as well. It's just a shortcut from the dashboard. And notice it says there are currently no time frames or units for this course. So that's going to be the first step I will do, is add them in. Notice it says there are no time frames or units, so I will first of all add in my time frames. So I can type in Q1 and click Save, and add the next one, Q2. And time frames are typically going to be quarters or trimesters, or they could also be months. So if you want to enter your months, so September, October, November, and so forth, and enter your units in that way. So I can enter each of those four in. Also, if you see this icon on the right, that means that your curriculum admin folks set up a shortcut for you where you could have clicked that and just copied those in. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to have duplicates of each of those. But again, I could have, rather than add these in one at a time. If you see this icon, that means those are set up. Also, you may not even see the add time frames, and you'll see that your time frames are already set up for you. That means your school set those up for you already and lock those down so that you don't edit those or change those. Some schools want to do that so they have consistent time frames for all teachers throughout. So that's adding the time frames. And if I were to go back now, you'll see that now I have my time frames in here, but that's only half of what I needed to do in that area. So let's go back there again. We also need to add in then our units. So let's add in a brand new unit, and we'll call it Introduction to Abstract Algebra. And we'll save that. Let's go ahead and add another unit, and we'll call it Functions. And we'll save that one. So the next step then is, so first of all, add in your time frames, then add your units to the appropriate time frames. Then if I click go back, notice that it has my time frames and the units that I set up. Also, the fields going across here are fields that were set up for you at the school or by your curriculum admin folks. The next step then is to talk about the next pencil. So when we typically do training and curriculum track with teachers, we encourage them to just look for pencils and paper clips. Pencils signify edit, and then the paper clips here are going to be for adding attachments. So let's now edit the unit itself. So if I click Edit Unit, what it does is it brings up all of my fields, essential questions, learning targets, assessments, and so forth, that I can now go in here and add in my content. I can type in my essential questions. So let's see, what was this? Abstract algebra. What makes this field of study abstract. I guess some folks would debate whether that's essential or not, but this is, oops, this is another question. And as you can see, I can't type this morning, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time typing. Our learning targets. And by the way, you can type this information in, or you can paste them from another source. For instance, if you had them in Word already, you can do that. You may have to come in here and do a little bit of formatting if you paste from another location. It does a pretty good job of keeping the formatting. It's just in this case, it's a little different than what I wanted. So I can do something like that. And I can continue in, and this is where so you'll want to work with your curriculum admin folks on effective essential questions and so forth. And that's not the purpose of this video here today. It's more technical to show you how to do it. So notice I have those 3 items added in. I left those last 3 blank, but I probably should continue on with that. The next item then is the paperclip, and that is if I wanted to attach unit resources. So let's go ahead and say I want to add in an attachment. There's 3 types of attachments that you can add. They could be uploaded files, they could be website links, or they could be page with text. And those attachments, you can decide exactly what field you want to attach those to. So for instance, I'm going to attach an uploaded file to the resources area. So I'm going to go ahead and choose file, and I'll browse to find the file that I want to add. So here's a PDF that I want to use, and I can give it a name if I want to. So let's say that it's my algebra starter activity, and I'll save that. And let's go ahead and add another one. Let's say I'm going to do a page with text. So then what you can do is you can put in whatever text that you might want in that page. Oh, it's saying you need to have a title for that. So we'll just call it page with text example, just so you can see what this looks like from a technical standpoint. And then the website link is pretty obvious. The nice thing about that is it will open those links in a new browser window. So now if I click this open, what that does is it expands it a bit more, and I can see my full unit. So I can click on this to see my PDF that I uploaded. This is my page with text and so forth. And I can click go back and be back where I started. You can open and close if you want to see your unit content. The next item is the benchmarks area. And so let's go ahead and click add attach benchmarks. And in here, since this is a math unit, you should see your math benchmarks. And notice there's a checkbox here. So right now it's only showing the benchmarks that are attached to this course. If you uncheck this, what you'll do is you'll see all the benchmarks for mathematics K through 12. So it's a pretty long list. And since I'm working in algebra or abstract algebra, I really don't need to concern myself with, for instance, these kindergarten standards or these first grade standards and so forth. So it's one of the processes that your curriculum admin folks can do is they can actually attach standards and benchmarks to your course ahead of time before you do your work. And if I do that, then when you check this box, it's nice you only see the benchmarks that you're responsible for in this course. By default, they're going to be marked as N, which means they're not covered in this unit. But if you're going to teach this benchmark in the unit, I'll go ahead and click Instructed, and I'm going to teach this one as well. And I'm going to assess this one. And so when we say assessed, we mean that it's not only being assessed, but instructed as well. You certainly wouldn't want to assess students on a benchmark if you're not teaching it. So just to reiterate once again, it's kind of a hierarchy. Not covered at all, instructed, and this means instructed and assessed. We're teaching it and assessing the students. And so I'll go ahead and click Save. And now notice that if I expand here, it has my 3 benchmarks. The A signifies it's assessed, the I signifies it's instructed. And obviously these labels don't mean a lot to you, so at any time you can click on that label to see the full description. The other nice thing is you also can see what other courses this benchmark is attached to within your school's curriculum. So that takes care of the 2 pencils and the 2 paper clips. You can also attach course resources. So these are resources at the unit level, but if you wanted to, for instance, upload a syllabus, you could do that. So let's say that it's going to be a file upload. Let's go ahead and find our course syllabus. We'll say is this right here, and we'll just say it's our course syllabus. And go ahead and click Save. And now if I click Go Back, it's going to be in the Course Resources area. Notice this wasn't here before, and you can open that up at any time. So these are the tools in the curriculum map, and this gives you a pretty good idea on how to create your curriculum map and edit it. The next item over is the units. And by the way, notice everything is color coordinated. So when I was in the mapping area, everything was red. Now let's go to the unit area. I'm going to go to the very same course, and let's go to the unit I was working on. So notice we have our 1 assessed, and notice it has the full description, but it has the other content that I added in. So what's the difference between maps and units? It's going to be the same content. The difference is I like to think of maps as, for instance, let's go to functions. It shows all your units and all the unit content for the entire course as a whole. Think of it as looking at a map of the United States where you can see all your states, and by looking at that map you have a good idea of where California is versus Maine and so forth. So it gives you more of a global view and you can see everything at once. Whereas when you're working at the unit level, it's like you're opening up a state map and you're digging in and getting more detail. So again, if we go to algebra, abstract algebra, and go to my unit, now I'm digging in at that state level, much more detailed, and that's why I can see all the information without having to click on these. Plus it's a vertical view, so it's much easier to see lots of content all in one view. Again, you can come in here and you can edit your time frames and units. You can attach your course resources. You can see your course resources. You can edit all of your fields, just like we saw before. You can edit the fields one at a time here. You couldn't do that in the mapping area, but if I, for instance, wanted to edit just the learning targets area, I can click on that and I get a bigger editor and it's maybe a little bit nicer. Also, if your computers are slow where you're working, maybe at school, if you edit these fields one at a time, that works really nice if you have slow loading at your school. One other nice thing about the unit view is if you're working on a mobile phone, that seems to be a pretty nice view. If I go to the maps view and go to functions and statistics, notice I can see everything here, but there's a little bit of scrolling and that can be difficult in a phone environment. However, if I go to my unit view and I go to functions and statistics, I can pull up my unit and I can see my essential questions and learning targets by just clicking on these boxes, closing and opening. And so this view is really intended for smartphone usage. Let's go to the next area, and that is the benchmarks. So this is where you can see all of your standards and benchmarks for any program area. So it looks like this school is using the Common Core standards for math. And it looks like they're using the Michigan standards for science and so forth. If you want to, you can pull up a course. So for instance, second grade science, I want to see the list of standards attached to second grade science. You can also do a search for maybe a specific word. So maybe I'm looking for senses. And I can do a search, and so it's going to pull up those benchmarks for second grade with the word senses in. Let's go on to the next area, and that is the other curriculum area. So let's search by course name. So this is a really nice area for teachers who want to see what other teachers are doing in other schools. You could go to a specific school, so if you happen to know one of these schools is a neighboring school that you would want to look directly at their content, you can do that. Or you could search by keyword. So for instance, maybe I'm an Algebra 1 teacher, and so what I want to do, or let's say I'm a middle school teacher that teaches algebra. So I would like to do a search to find all algebra maps for 7th and 8th grade. And incidentally, this is going to give all of them, and some of them are going to be very beneficial. Some of them may be somewhat sparse or empty. So we have this feature right here that says only include courses where maps are 80% complete. So that's something I would recommend that you consider doing. Because notice I had 520 maps to look through. And so that's quite a bit to look through. I can click on one of these if I wanted to. Yeah, here's a perfect example. They have their scope and sequence set up, but notice their unit content hasn't been entered in yet. So let me go ahead and click go back once again. And let's choose this. And I typically would do this from the start. So then instead of 520 maps, I'm going to have 223 maps, but the nice thing is I can click on these and they're very likely going to be maps that have content in them. So this is really nice. I can get an idea what this teacher, this algebra, pre-algebra teacher at Berean Christian School is doing teaching their students, and I can see the full map. If I want to come back to this later, I can click add to my favorites, and what that allows me to do then is if I come back later, I could say only include my favorites, click a search, and notice there it shows up. I can also search by unit name if I want to. So for instance, let's say that I'm looking for a particular unit on fractions. So let's go to fractions, and again, let's look at 7th and 8th grade. And so notice there is over 500,000 fraction or units for us to search through. And notice that I came up with 623 units, and let's go ahead and click on one of those. And again, I forgot to do the 80%, I guess, here, but let's see. Hopefully we can find one with some content. It brings up the actual unit itself. Again, I can add it to my favorites, and I can also contact this school. So for instance, let's say that they would have something creative in the strategies area, like a particular lesson or something. You could contact that school regarding that if you had any questions. And incidentally, this isn't going to go directly to the teacher. It'll go to the curriculum admin at that school, who then could forward it to the teacher if he or she chooses to do so. Next, let's move on to the reports. So as a teacher, these can be very beneficial as well. So I could pull up the courses that I teach. So second grade science, there's the 28 benchmarks that are attached to it. Currently, if I was teaching this course, I am assessing 22 of those 28 and instructing 15. And you can see for each one of these, for instance, this one right here is being instructed 5 times, but it doesn't look like we're ever assessing it. So I'm wondering why that's the case. We maybe should be assessing it at some point. Here's another one of those. And so if you click on that, you can also see where it's actually being assessed and instructed. If we go to the benchmarks map by grade, we could once again choose just second grade. Let's choose all grades, because this gives us a nice graphical overview of the benchmarks and where they're being taught. The gray signifies where it should be taught. So this one should be taught in kindergarten, and it's currently being instructed there, not being assessed, just instructed. So here's some more. This one should be taught in second grade, and it currently is being instructed in at least one unit and being assessed in at least one unit. And we can kind of work our way down. These columns here, it looks like maybe someone set something up incorrectly. So it looks like in third grade we have some work to do. We have, these are the ones that should be, but there was a bunch of them at the top that were not being instructed or assessed. So those are some really handy reports once you get further along. Some other reports that I think teachers could really benefit from, the scope and sequence report. So let's look at our school-wide, I did the wrong one, I apologize. Let's go to scope and sequence first. So what this allows us to do is all of the science courses. So for instance, if I teach second grade science, it's really handy for me to be able to see what's being taught in first grade science and what's being taught in third grade science. So we call that our scope and sequence report. And not only notice these are links, you can also click on these to see, okay, this is taught in ninth grade biology, but what does that look like? You can click on that unit to actually open it up as well. You can also click on this ninth grade biology to see all the content, not just the time frames and units, but the content that's in those units for the entire course. So it'll have your quarters across the top and then the units with the unit content in there. So that's a really nice complete map. Other things that you can do is you can search by keyword. So for instance, if I wanted to do a search and I want to find all the units that have the word reading in them, as an example, I can do a search and notice that reading is in all these units. There's some art ones, some English ones, and I could keep working my way across. Actually, we were working in math, so let's go back and take a look at fractions. And I'm going to look for the word fractions in the essential questions and assessments as well. And so I can find those and I can click on any of those units. There are other reports that we could work through, and then there's also the help area. So this is where you can access the help manual. If you have questions about anything, you can go to the overview and setup videos. We have a complete video library here that has all our videos on YouTube. This now concludes this instructional video.